You're listening to the Life with Old Dogs podcast, and I'm your host, Dawn Mimnaugh, primary caretaker of all of our wonderful senior German Shepherds right here at Woody's Place Senior German Shepherd Sanctuary. Alrighty, hey there, folks. Welcome back. So this week's podcast episode was actually last week's podcast episode, and recording whatever was totally messed up. This is actually my 8th time recording it, so fingers crossed this one takes. All right, so in this week's podcast episode, I'm covering the different varieties of dog food. I'm not talking about dog food brands. I'm talking about different varieties in the sense that we have kibble or dry food. We have canned, otherwise known as wet food, dehydrated, freeze-dried, commercial brand raw, and homemade raw, and home cooked. So what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to cover what I believe are the pros and cons of each to help you make an informed decision with which variety you would prefer to use for your dog. Right off the bat, I'm going to tell you right now, we use a variety here at Woody's Place Senior German Shepherd Sanctuary. So we do use a high quality kibble. I try not to use that as often as I do the others, but we do use all of them, the freeze-dried, dehydrated, canned, raw. We don't typically buy commercial brand raw. We'll just do raw here ourselves. But the biggest variety that I use is home cooked. I love home cooking first of all, I home cook all the time for Mr. Woody's Place, and I just love it. It's something that I find very therapeutic. I'm always in the kitchen. I love having my hands in ingredients and stuff like that. And it just kind of spilled over to the residents of Woody's Place. I love cooking for them. And so much so that I went ahead and I became a race certified pet nutrition coach so that I can make sure that what I was feeding them was, of course, helping them and not doing any harm. So enough of that. All right. Choosing the right brand of dog food, it can be a daunting task. I mean, if you go into any big box pet food store, or you go, look up like dog food online at the major distributors, Amazon, Chewy, Pet Flow, all of them. Oh my gosh. I mean, your head can spin with all the different types of dog foods out there, the brands and the types and the varieties as well. So obviously coming up with the best it's almost like you need a college degree and to be a sleuth to figure out which one is the best. And clearly what might be best for your dog may not be what's best for your sister's dog or your neighbor or whatever. Picking a dog food, the brand, flavor even, and the variety is a very, very personal preference. And most people make that decision based on veterinary advice, scientific research, and most of all, the marketing and advertising, which really comes at us like just a pack of, hungry wolves. There are 6 major pet food marketers here in the United States. It's a $30 billion industry, and they all want our money. So this to me is one of the cons, clear across the board, whether you do kibble, canned, dehydrated, freeze-dried, whatever. If you're buying your dog's food from the store, there's marketing and advertising involved. And sometimes, and I'm not saying this is all the time, but a lot of the time, they're really churching up the images on the bags and trying to make it look like it's real ingredients and wholesome and nutritious and the best that you could possibly do for your dog. But is it really? We're going to get into that. So for me, clear across the board, one of the biggest cons in every variety here that I'm going to go through and con, like maybe pun intended, is marketing and advertising. Like I said, they all want your money. Sometimes there's vague descriptions being used on these bags. Sometimes they're out and out misleading and deceptive. And, think of ingredient words on the bag or in the ingredients say all natural, but it's not really, or the ingredients are questionably sourced. So clear across the board, marketing and advertising is a big con for me. That is me by nature. Number one, you really have to win me over. And someone once told me I have a good bullshit barometer, and I do. And I'm not exactly, afraid to call somebody out on their crap, especially if that means what they're selling me is going to hurt myself, my family, or any of these animals in my care. Like, you really got to win me over. All right, enough of that. Let's get into it. Kibble is the first variety. It's the most common. It's the most convenient. It's the most affordable, really. And the marketers have us convinced that we don't need to think twice about using their product, that in that bag, it's just one and done. That's all our dogs are ever going to need from the time they're born to the time they die. But is it really? So let's just get into the pros. Number one, it's super readily available, unless there's like a pandemic, but it's like in every grocery store. It's even in the dollar store. A lot of the times you'll even find an aisle in a hardware store that sells it. I mean, it's readily available. Now there are, of course, it's a wide spectrum of kibble, and you have, some that's not so great, and then you have a high quality kibble, and then you have middle of the road. So obviously, if you're, you live in an area like me, it's a rural area. It's like 30 minutes to the closest Walmart. Like, we're not, we have woods. we have woods, creeks and rivers and lakes. That's what we have. Deer. So we don't have like, a high quality kibble here in the dollar store, local mom pop grocery store, or whatever. It's typical, like, lower end kibble. So, but you know what? If that's what somebody can afford, or if they just don't know any better, they can walk right into the dollar store or the local mom pop grocery store and pick up that bag of kibble. So it's pretty much sold in all grocery stores and big box pet food stores, small boutiques, online. You can get it. Another pro about it is it's reasonably priced. It has a relatively decent price point. Again, you have a higher end up here. I'm thinking like that's what we get. Royal Canin, that's another one. They're up at the higher end of the echelon of dog food. Then you have like the lower end down here. That's kind of like the Benefals and the Old Roys and stuff like that, where you can get like a 40-pound bag of dog food for like $30 or something like that. So the price point is pretty decent. It has a good shelf life. So if it can sit on a shelf for a long time. I mean, years, to be honest with you. And when you open the bag, the ingredients will still be fresh because they're so well preserved, but it has a good shelf life. But once you open that bag, and it's exposed to air, then it starts to oxidize. So then the shelf life isn't years. You need to use it really within, I would say, no longer than a month, honestly. But I know other people, it could be like a couple of months that and it's still fresh in their mind. But the point is, it does last a whole lot longer than like a home cooked meal. Another pro is it comes in a variety of flavors and options. I mean, if your dog doesn't like chicken or turkey, you can do beef or venison. There's duck, there's whitefish, there's tons of flavors available. Different options. If your dog's overweight, you can get a reduced calorie kibble. If your dog has allergies, you can get a limited ingredient kibble, grain-free kibble. So even if your dog has kidney issues, you can get a K&D kibble. So there's quite a few options out there, and they all claim to be nutritionally balanced for your dog. The last is it is one and done. I mean, you look at the bag, the back of the bag tells you how many cups to give your dog who weighs X amount of weight, tells you how much to give in a day. You can either give it once a day or you can give it twice a day, but it is literally scooping the food out of the bag and putting it in your dog's bowl, one and done. Call it a day, call it good, whatever you want to say. All right, time for the other boot to drop. The cons of kibble. Again, already covered the big one for me, and that is the dangers of marketing and advertising. Do your due diligence. I'm telling you now, because there's quite a few out there selling you rainbows and sunshine. All right. You got to do your due diligence and know the manufacturer, who you're getting your kibble from. Look into them, research them, know their story. You also want to be knowledgeable about reading the ingredients. Okay. If they're telling you on the bag that it's loaded with antioxidants, and, you're looking at the ingredients, and salt is a key ingredient, because any ingredient that comes after salt is like minuscule. So basically, if they're saying that it's loaded with antioxidants and you see something about blueberries after salt in the ingredients, you're basically getting a blueberry in a 40-pound bag. So good for you. I'm serious. So, definitely vague and misleading wording on packages. So again, can't stress it enough. Do your due diligence. All right. Another con is kibble. Kibble can be loaded with preservatives, additives, and food coloring. Just ingredients like that have no nutritional benefit for your dog. In fact, they're harmful. Okay. Like if you have a child, you wouldn't be giving your child Skittles every day, twice a day, because they're not good for your child. They're loaded with additives and food coloring and stuff like that. I mean, is it okay sometimes? Sure it is. That's why it's a treat. Because it tastes good, right? And it's so colorful and it looks so pretty, and, kind of makes people happy, I guess, if you're into that stuff. But it's the same with kibble. And again, do your due diligence, because there are some that are better than others. So I'm thinking like, of a Beneful, honestly. When I look at Beneful, I just cringe. I'm sorry. If you feed your dog Beneful, please, there are way better choices than that. But, when you look at the kibble itself, and it's red and it's brown and it's kind of orange and it's yellow and green and stuff like that, that does not represent, beef, spinach, and carrots. That's not what that's about. It's food coloring, and it's bad. As are the preservatives and additives that lend to that super long shelf life. There is a price to pay for that, and it's your dog's health. Another big con for me is, again, and I'm not talking about all kibble here. I'm talking about, some kibble. Again, because there are manufacturers out there, they're usually smaller, that aren't doing, what maybe bigger manufacturers are doing. So another con for me would be low quality and even questionable ingredients. Okay. So if you're looking again at the label, say, let's just say it's, loaded with protein or whatever, and you're looking at the ingredients of the bag and you see, 4 or 5 different types of peas or, variations of peas in your bag, where it's pea protein powder or protein pea whatever. That's a red flag, right? You don't want that. That's a cheap filler. That's a cheap excuse for protein. They're not offering you lean, fresh meat. They're selling you protein, but it's a filler. It's just a lower end, and it's not good for your dogs. The questionable ingredients, and there have been some horror stories, folks. If you read about this, it's no joke about manufacturers of dog food getting sick and dead animals from slaughterhouses. Seriously, roadkill. I'm not joking. In the food being called meat byproduct. That's to me, if I'm spending $100 on a bag of dog food and I see meat byproduct, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it, because they are not saying exactly what that meat is and where it was sourced from. And to me, that is a greasy marketing tactic. So again, do your due diligence, because you want what's best for your dog. I know you do. Sorry. Kibble also has a tendency to be pretty carb heavy, which is something else you don't want for your dog. Recalls, salmonella, E. coli, certain level of mycotoxins, too much vitamin A, too much vitamin D. These are all scary things, and we are trusting these manufacturers to keep our dogs healthy, but then accidents like this happen, right? And for me, again, one and done. If I'm with a pet food company for certain reasons, and there's a pet food recall, and I know my dog has eaten that, trust is gone. I'm a tough customer. Another con is the very process of making the kibble is actually a carcinogen to our dogs. So they take whatever ingredients they're using. Again, they could be higher end ingredients, or they could be, the stuff on the floor of the slaughterhouse. And they basically cook the bejesus out of it at a high pressure and a high temperature. And they, in a sense, cook all the nutrients out of the ingredients. And that's a carcinogen. That would be like us breaking out our Blackstone grill, and cooking up hot dogs and hamburgers every night on the grill. And it's nice and charbroiled on the outside and all that stuff. It's a carcinogen. I mean, yeah, do we like it? Mm-hmm, yeah, for the most. But would you eat it every night? No, because it's not healthy for you, and it's a carcinogen. It's the exact same with kibble. And as I just touched base on, it does cook the nutrients out, and then the manufacturers add synthetic vitamins and minerals at the end. So, I mean, there's a debate about synthetic vitamins. If you take a multivitamin, it's a synthetic. It's a synthetic ingredient. And does it work? I mean, yeah, it does. There's, some debate about that. But is it better to get the actual ingredient from the actual vitamin from the actual ingredient in the food? Yeah, we can all agree that that's best for us, just like it is our dogs. All right, and as I touched base earlier, once you open that bag, it starts to oxidize. There's typically fat sprayed on the kibble. That makes it appealing to your dog. Once that fat is exposed to the air, it starts to become rancid. The vitamins also start to deplete. So you want to use that, or diminish, sorry. You want to use that bag as quickly as possible. A little side note about this. So how you store your kibble. Some of them have like a nice like kind of like a Ziploc seal on the top that you can just, use, scoop out what you want and then reseal it, and that's great. Others don't. Others you have to like cut it open. So here's what I do here at the sanctuary. I have plastic containers on wheels with lids. However, I do not dump the dog food in that plastic container. I leave it in the bag. And then I put the whole bag in the plastic container. The reason I do this is because, again, that fat on the kibble, it can build up in the plastic container. You'll see it. It's like a film on the container, the inside of the container, and it's rancid, and it can make your dog sick. The other thing is kibble itself kind of etches the inside of the plastic container, and that makes it susceptible to bacteria being built up in there and germs and stuff like that. And if you don't clean it out, again, your dog's. It would be like us having a steak and eating off the same plate for a month without cleaning it. It's just gross. Don't do it. All right, moving on. I know I'm kind of talking fast, but I got like 12 pages of notes. I got a lot to cover here. Next is canned, otherwise known as wet dog food. It's the next most popular variety of dog food, but is it better for them? All right, we're going to find out. So let's jump right into the pros. It is actually better than kibble in the sense that it's wet, so it's hydrated, and this is fantastic for dogs who are prone to becoming dehydrated. Maybe they just don't drink enough. Maybe you live in a really hot climate. Maybe they're older and they just, or they're on medication that dries them out some. So it's good in that sense. The other thing is if you have a dog that's older or even younger and they have problems with their teeth or they're missing teeth, obviously, they're not going to be able to chew kibble. If you give them kibble, they're probably just swallowing it. And how great is that? It's not. Like nobody just wants to swallow their food, and your dog doesn't want to either. Canned is better. All right, because they can, if they don't have teeth, they can kind of slosh it around in their mouth a little bit. And it's just better for them if they have dental problems. Just like canned, it is just like kibble, it is nutritionally balanced. It also comes in different flavors, right? Just like I was talking about with kibble, chicken, beef, venison, turkey, duck, whitefish. There's salmon. There's definitely different varieties. Canned food also comes in different textures, so that's kind of cool. And when I say different textures, I mean like you can go and get pate, just like cat food, or you can get something that looks sort of like beef stew, right, with chunks in it, with actual chunks in it, and real food that you can actually see. And I would think this would be pretty appealing to all dogs, but it's especially appealing to picky dogs. Again, because of the moisture content, it's easier to digest than kibble. And also, if you have a dog that has like some GI problems, like maybe diarrhea, or I'm sorry, not diarrhea, constipation, it helps with that because, again, it has a higher moisture content. Another pro about canned is the protein is usually higher and the carbs are usually lower, which I think is fantastic. Also, because they're in a can, they are airtight, so they don't need a whole lot of synthetic preservatives, which I was mentioning earlier. Any ingredients that are in it, like meats, retain their natural taste and flavors better than they would in a kibble. There's no prep work, and the shelf life is good. Cons of cans. Cons of canned dog food. It can be expensive. Holy smokes. I mean, it really can be expensive. All joking aside. I mean, this, I was looking, I guess about a week and a half ago, I was, in our local, ag store, and I was looking at I was in the pet food aisle, and I just go in there and it's like a moth to a flame. I'm just sucked right in, and I'm reading labels and checking prices, and all this other stuff. And anyway, I was looking at canned dog food. And of course, they have like, again, lower end canned dog food where you can get like a 10-ounce can or something, maybe an 8-ounce can, something along those lines for $2, which, isn't, I don't really think it's going to break the bank. Sorry, I just had to take a little break there for a second, but getting back to this. Okay. The price of canned dog food. So, okay. I forget what I was saying, but anyway, 12-ounce can. Let's say a 12-ounce can of dog food for Atticus. Atticus weighs about 100 pounds. So Atticus would need about 6 12-ounce cans of dog food a day if I was just feeding him canned dog food. So, okay, if they were $2 a can, we don't pay tax. So if it was $2 a can times 6, that's $12. That's not horrible. I guess if you just have one dog, if you have multiple dogs, that adds up. But then you have cans of dog food that are like $5 a can. So if I'm feeding him 6 cans a day, then that's $30 for a decent can of dog food. All right. So then that definitely adds up. I mean, I'm not eating $30 worth of food a day myself. Another con about canned dog food is that it can lead to obesity. I think eating any kind of dog food can lead too much can lead to obesity, but excuse me, it has a high fat content. So if you have an older inactive dog, you got to watch out for that. Just like Kibble, there's recalls. There's recalls on canned food as well. Also, like Kibble, which I'm not sure I mentioned, but your dog can become prone to food allergies, food sensitivity, skin issues, ear issues, even behavioral problems from certain ingredients in the food. But the biggest con for me for canned dog food is the BPA in the cans. Just like us, when you go to the canned food aisle at the grocery store, whether it be for canned vegetables or fruits or even canned pasta like ravioli or something like that, there's BPA in those cans. And then it leaches into the food. So if that's all you're feeding your dog, you need to be conscientious of that. All right, moving on to freeze-dried and dehydrated. So they are similar, but they are processed a little bit differently. Freeze-dried goes through a process called sublimation. It is also 98 to 99% of the moisture is removed. Where dehydrated, only about 90 to 95% of the moisture is removed from the ingredients. Both are in my opinion, healthier options than canned and Kibble. Oh, Kibble for sure. But both are pretty costly. All right, I'm doing these two together. So the pros. Both are minimally processed, which is fantastic. I mean, some of it is even raw. So minimally processed retains all of its nutritional value for both of them. They're typically high quality ingredients. Now, the 6 big pet food manufacturers have jumped on the freeze dried and dehydrated gravy train, if you will. And so, I would definitely, I like I said, pour over every bag anyway, but definitely read the package itself. Everybody's got a cell phone in their hand now. If you're curious about a freeze-dried brand of food or dehydrated brand of food, whip out your phone. Start doing a little bit of investigating before you purchase that product, because it is costly and it is an investment, and you're buying it because you think you're buying the best, right? So definitely, again, back to the marketing, check it out. Both are really easy to rehydrate. So I use both. And so right now we have Stella and Chewy freeze-dried duck patties. They look like little hockey pucks or little like burgers, sort of dried out burgers. And basically, it tells you on the bag how much your dog will need. You put them in a bowl. I break them up into little pieces because they rehydrate quicker that way. And you just pour warm water, hot water on top of them. Or what I'll do is I do water as well, but what I do is I make bone broth for the dogs here. I'll reheat bone broth for the dogs, and then I'll pour that on top of the freeze-dried or dehydrated, so they're getting additional nutrients in the food as well. Both have a really good shelf life. Both are easy to store, and both are really pretty compact. I'm thinking of like the Stella and Chewy duck patties. I mean, they come in a bag. It's not that big. It's nice and light. It stores easy in the cabinet. Freeze-dried food, it's the same. There's like an Honest Kitchen or something like that. Dr. Harvey's also has that dehydrated. Again, they'll either come in a bag that's not really that big, or a box with a bag inside, like a liner bag inside. And it'll be like a powder substance, or, the ingredients that are just, dehydrated. So I like that. I like the fact that it's really easy to store and it's convenient, and the shelf life is great without any unnecessary additives and preservatives. Okay, there are some cons to dehydrated and freeze-dried food. The one being expensive. Again, it's not cheap, but in my mind, it's a better product to feed the dogs here at Woody's place, so I don't mind. Another thing is, and I have found this with some of the ingredients. Some of the residents here, particularly Nona, they don't all love it. And I think it's because of the texture. Like it ends up looking like a pea soup, sort of. And they don't love it. Like they're not really eating anything. They're just lapping like a bowl of soup or something like that. So what I do is, a lot of I do the home cooking, and I do like a 70-30 split or an 80-20 split, or if it's a busy week work-wise and stuff like that, I'll even do like a 60-40 split. Like I'm doing, kibble and canned, or kibble and home cooked, or kibble and freeze-dried and raw, or dehydrated on top. So I mix it up. And that's definitely what I do with the freeze-dried and dehydrated. I don't give it to them just that. I'm always mixing it with something else because, again, I do have some picky eaters here, and for some reason they just don't like, I think, that texture or consistency that comes from the freeze-dried and dehydrated. And once again, I just mentioned about bigger manufacturers jumping on the gravy train here because they notice now dog food owners are perking up to what's been going on in the pet food world, or the pet food world. Check out that video. A little side note here: if you have Amazon Prime, check out the documentary Pet Food. It is phenomenal, and it is an eye opener. But anyway, so they've jumped on. So, the prices might be a little lower for some different types of freeze-dried and dehydrated because the ingredients are a lower quality. And another con, and I mean, this isn't really a big one. It's not always available first of all, it's really not available in some local grocery stores. And again, like where I am, it's definitely not available here. It's not available in dollar stores. You can get it online for sure. You can get it in like pet boutique stores or holistic pet food stores, the higher end pet food boutiques, I'm going to say. Bigger pet food stores like Petco, PetSmart, they're starting to carry them now too. Pet Value is a good one. They carry a lot of the freeze-dried and dehydrated It's like about 40 minutes from here, but again, I don't mind. Sometimes I got to get out of the sticks. So I go over to Scranton and be a part of civilization for a while. I'll go check out, stores over there and the, Pet Smart and all that stuff, Pet Value, and a couple of mom pop pet food stores, and then I tell it out of there because I remember I don't like being in civilization. All right, next up is raw, commercial brand raw. Now I know there's raw, people do it at home and stuff like that, but I want to cover the commercial brand raw. All right, again, I will grab commercial brand raw. Sometimes there's Pet Fresh that comes in like a giant tube or in a bag or something like that. The residents here, they do like it. Brandy toward the end. Oh my God, the poor girl. I was using that for her predominantly. But then she would also want cans of Beneful, not cans, like the cups of Beneful or whatever. People donate stuff to us, and usually I put it in the pet food pantry. But I was this one time just trying to get her to eat something, and I thought, well, let me just try this and see. I mean, at that point, she's on her way out of this world. What difference does it make? She loved it. But to me, it's like McDonald's. Or mixed sickness, as I like to call it. Like, for some reason, we're drawn to it. We eat it. We feel bad afterwards. We don't touch it again for a long time. But yeah, she would go from the commercial brand raw to Beneful. But one of the good things about commercial brand raw is it provides all the nutritional benefits that we want from raw without the risks. Don't get me wrong, there are still risks again because recalls happen, but they go through such a stringent process of rules and regulations to get this raw into the freezers and refrigerators in our pet food stores that chances of something happening are a whole lot less than if it was us just going to the store and buying ingredients and whatnot. I don't know, maybe not. That's debatable. That really is. You really have to know what you're doing and know where your ingredients are coming from if you're going to do raw. Bottom line is there's always risks. All right, but a pro to me about commercial brand raw is it is super convenient. It's already pre-made. They tell you how much you're supposed to give your dog, and that's that. So I love that. And so do lots of dog parents who are working parents and have families and, kids running off to sports activities and all kinds of stuff. It's really convenient. And you feel a whole lot better giving it to your dog than a bag of kibble. At least I do anyway. Once again, it's super easy to portion out. You just read, like, if you're getting Fresh Pet and it's the tube, and there are different brands. Fresh Pet just came to my mind. Literally tells you how much you're supposed to slice to give to your dog of a certain weight. So it's really easy. It's easy to store. Some of it is stored in the refrigerator. Others is stored in the freezer. So it's really pretty easy to store. And I don't really think it takes up a whole lot of space, but that could be a con for some people. It's limited, if any, of preservatives, additives, and food coloring, which is also it's also a big plus for me. And another pro would be it is the closest to evolutionary, biologically appropriate diets of ancestral dogs, which is appealing to a lot of people. All right, the cons. There's really not too many, but you do have to trust the company that is manufacturing the food. Again, can't stress it enough. I sound like a broken record. Do your due diligence. It can be expensive. It is pretty expensive, actually, if you're buying commercial brand raw dog food. It's not always great for sick dogs, dogs who are immunocompromised, because the meat, if it's raw, still may contain pathogens that can make them sick. And dogs who are older, geriatric, or immunocompromised may have a harder time coming back from that, fighting that off. Again, if it's got to be frozen, kept in the freezer, it has to stay frozen until you're ready to use it. Then it has to thaw out, and then you have to use it right away. So that could be a drawback for some people. Another is it's not as convenient in the sense that, like, if you're traveling, let's just say you're camping or something like that, it doesn't travel as well. It's like all the others, the Kibble, the canned, the freeze dried, the dehydrated. It's a little bit more of a just an added step, I would think. But if you're not traveling, then it's not a big deal. Okay. I saved what I feel is the best for last. All right. And that is home cooked dog food. Obviously, as dog food or as dog parents, we want what's best for our dogs. There's no doubt about it. A lot of us want the best thing for our dogs because we love them. They're family, and we want them to be with us for as long as possible, enjoying their time here on Earth. So one way to ensure that your dog is getting the best nutrients possible is to cook yourself. If you're into that thing. If you're not into that thing, I totally get it. But I understand it may be a daunting task. And again, it's time consuming, and not everybody wants to be in the kitchen all the time. But there are so many benefits to cooking your dog's meal from scratch with your own two hands. One right off the bat that I can think of is you have complete control over what is going into that meal. All right. If you've been around the dog food block long enough, you know that there are things in that bag of dog food, kibble, canned, whatever, that you don't want your dog having. And somehow we just rationalize in our heads that it has this, so that'll be good, I mean, come on. Sometimes even the bag itself is bad, and there's chemicals leaching into the food that we don't want. So maybe I'm a bit of a control freak. Again, I'm a tough customer, and I know what I want, and what I want, I don't see a lot of on the shelf. So I make it myself because I feel better about that. I know what ingredient it is, how much of the ingredient is going in there. Sometimes, like even out here where I am, and it's an agricultural area, I will go right to the farm stand and buy the meat directly from the farmer. I can see how these animals are living in the field before they end up being dinner somewhere. Unfortunately, I know that sounds bad, but we all got to eat. And our dogs are not vegetarians. They're omnivores. So they need meat. They need it. All right. So there's no byproduct in it. There's no preservatives in it. There's no additives in it. I'm not putting food coloring in it. I'm not putting in any unnecessary ingredient to keep it on a shelf for 25 years or whatever. And the same can be for you if you choose to cook for your dog. Another pro is by home cooking for your dog and adding the ingredients you want, you can tailor the meal to your dog's needs. If you have a dog that's allergic to chicken, well, you don't add chicken. You don't add any chicken product to it. If you have a dog who has diabetes, you can control what ingredients are going into this diet and portioning it out so that your dog is having its nutritional needs met without making its diabetes act up. So it's totally customizable. Another benefit or pro is variety. I mean, there's no shortages of options for home cooking for your dogs. And let me tell you something. There is not a time here at the sanctuary, nor has there been since I started cooking for the residents here of Woody's Place, that there is a speck of food left in their bowls after mealtime, and they eat twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. I mean, they lick their bowls clean. And I mean that. And then after they lick their bowl clean, they're running over to someone else's bowl that walked away to lick their bowl to see if there's anything else in it. So they are super, super excited to eat because it's real food and they need real food. It's minimally processed. So my motto for home cooking for the dogs is low and slow. That means, like right now I have in my Instant Pot, I have it on slow cooker right now. I have a whole roasting chicken in there. I have some sweet potato in there. I have some carrots in there, and I have bone broth in there and a little bit of golden paste in there. I also I grow herbs here at the sanctuary. So I have thyme, I have parsley, and I have a little bit of marjoram in there for them as well. And then once it's done, I'll add some blueberries to it or apples, something along those lines, maybe a little bit of pumpkin even. And then I'll give it to the dogs. If I'm worried about it not being nutritionally balanced, which that's something I'm going to get into later on in this season, balancing the meals so that you're making sure all their nutritional needs are met. You don't have to make sure every single meal is nutritionally balanced, okay? But you do have to make sure their nutrients are being met like within a certain amount of time. But not every single meal needs to be nutritionally balanced. But that being said, you can add synthetic nutrients to their meals. And there are commercial brand varieties out there. I know Dr. Becker, Karen Becker, she has a good one. It's called Meal Mix. And it's comes in a box, and there's individual sleeves inside the box. And basically you just cut one of the sleeves open, and it's like a powdery substance, and you add it directly to your dog's home cooked meal and stir it in. They don't know it's there, but then it's voila, nutritionally balanced. So it's not as hard as some people make it out to be. That being said, though, it is a bit of an education, home cooking. Like you do need to know what you're doing, because you can create imbalances and nutritional deficiencies if you don't. So you do need to know what you're doing. And like I said, I'm definitely going to help you with that, starting in the next podcast episode, as a matter of fact. So yeah, it does take a little bit of an education. Another con for some people is, it certainly isn't for me, but for some people is it is time consuming. It's an investment, and not everybody wants to do that. So if that's you and you don't want to cook for your dog, instead of just doling out kibble, put an egg on top. Add to that kibble. Okay. You could put an egg on top, or you can, if you're having chicken for dinner, cook an extra chicken breast and shred it and put it in your dog's food. So just add to your dog's kibble, home cooked whole foods, because they're going to love it and they need it. One thing that has disturbed me over the years, I mean, even from the time I was a little girl, was I never liked how people would get upset about a dog begging. Like if you're at a table and everybody's eating, and there's Fido sitting on the floor just with these big eyes and maybe even drooling, and just, like, I want some too. I want some too. And then somebody, gets upset and is like, put him away, put him in another room, because they're aggravated because the dog is begging. Well, why do you think that dog is begging? Because that dog has been eating kibble, which is cereal. It's basically cereal. And we wouldn't eat cereal, from the time we're born till the time we die, every day throughout our lives, and think that that's going to meet all of our nutrients, nutritional value, nutrients. So why would it be the same for our dog? They need real food, okay? They need real food. And we're not giving it to them. I think kibble, I mean, some guy who was an electrician, and I covered this in the last episode, who was an electrician, invented it. Do you think he really had dogs nutritional value in mind? No, he didn't. He was probably thinking about money and how to make it last as long as it possibly could, to get people to buy it. And we've gotten so far away from what our dogs as a species should be eating that it's mind-boggling. And then these big conglomerates come in and brainwash us to believe that we are supposed to buy that bag of kibble because that's all our dog needs. It's really crazy, really crazy. And I'm not bashing people again who use kibble, because I do from time to time, again, because it is convenient, right? It is convenient. And, if you give it to them, sometimes it's not going to hurt them. It's variety. It's part of the variety. I guess my point that I'm trying to make is when you're exclusively feeding that's when it becomes a problem. I mean, there is a correlation between the high rates of cancer, autoimmune disease, diabetes, etc. in our dogs in today's day and age, and that bag of food. All right, so just keep that in mind. Again, if you don't want to home cook for your dog, I totally get it, but add to their kibble. Add to it fresh foods, all right? Like I said, scramble up an egg, put it in there, hard-boiled egg. That's like one of the easiest things you can do. And a large dog can have one egg a day. And they'll be enticed for sure. They'll want to eat that. If you scramble it up and, you don't want to give it to them raw, that's fine. If you want to scramble it up, just put it in their food, mix it in there, and they're going to go crazy. And then while you're at it, maybe even throw in a couple blueberries. They may eat it, they may not, but it certainly will give them more of what they need. All right. So another thing about, and I'm almost done here, but another thing about feeding a variety of different types of dog food, the kibble, the canned, the freeze-dried, the dehydrated, the raw, whether it's commercial or you make it, and the home-cooked is, your dog is now exposed to more ingredients, which lessens the chance of allergies, food allergies, sensitivity, and even boredom. All right. So you're broadening their horizon, you're expanding their palate, and they're going to love you for it. And also, and finally, whatever you're feeding your dog, please make sure it's high quality and minimally processed. Doing so plays a crucial role in preventing things like heart disease, cancer, obesity, and diabetes. And again, when your dog looks great and is healthy, you feel better. All right. I think this is the longest episode this season, but we had a lot to cover. Thank you for hanging in there. If you can think of any other pros and cons, I'd love to hear about it. All right. Just put it in the comments section, and I'd love to have a chat about it with you. All right, folks. Until next time, be well.